Hello and welcome to Wags and Whiskers, an informative pet program on WOTVC, brought to you by the Miami County Animal Shelter and Troy Animal Hospital and Bird Clinic. Our program today is going to be all about health tips for the everyday pet owner. We're going to be going to Troy to meet Dr. Davis at the Troy Animal Hospital and Bird Clinic. We're going to be discussing different topics that would be of interest and what every pet owner should know. Some of those topics, the first one would be vaccines. What kind of vaccines do you need for your dog? How often do you get them? And some other preventative medicines that you might need for heartworms, rabies, and how to treat ticks and fleas, because this time of year they're really getting bad. So we'll be going into that and getting some information for that. Nutrition for your dog, now that you have a dog, different things that you're going to need to know. What's the right food for your dog? Do you have a large dog, a small dog? Is he young, old? Puppies need special food. If they're a little overweight, and we're not talking about you, Thor, but we are. If he's a little overweight, they do have weight management food, so you can use that. And just, you know, what exactly would be right for your dog, and all of us kind of cheat and use table scraps sometimes. So we'll check with the doctor and just see how bad table scraps are for them. Then we're going to check on the teeth and the gums, dental health, and we're going to discuss whether or not you should brush your teeth. Some people don't want to do that, so they have things on the market you can buy to feed your dog to help with that. So we're going to be checking on that. One of the topics that doesn't get discussed too much are the different poisons, different foods that are poisonous to dog, different plants that are poisonous to them. We're going to check with the doctor and see if there's some sort of a list, or if he can give us some advice on poisons, the different kinds, and what do you do if your dog does ingest something that might be poisonous, or what some of the symptoms are. Something else that we're going to be discussing is spay and neuter. Of course, being with the animal shelter, I'm always going to say, yes, you need to spay and neuter your dog. But we're going to find out exactly why you need to spay and neuter, and at what age would be a good age to think about doing that. Another thing that you need to talk about or think about is grooming your dog. How often do you bathe them? Do you brush them? Some dogs need to be trimmed. Like poodles, you know, they need to be cut or their little fur just goes crazy. So we're going to check to see if how much we need to do that. And one other topic we're going to talk about are the toenails. Why is it important to trim their toenails, and how often you should do it, and you know what happens if you don't do it? What if you just let them grow, or if they don't wear down? You know, some of the problems that you can come across with that. And then one of the other things that we're going to be talking about is exercise for your dog. How much exercise should your dog get? How often? How much is too much? And how getting the correct exercise can help with some problems that you might have with a dog digging, chewing, barking, and some aggression. A lot of that could just be that he's not getting enough exercise, and if you do get the correct amount of exercise, then you know, you could help alleviate some of that. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to show you exactly how Thor gets some exercise. Yes, he definitely needs it. So we're going to come back and we're going to show you just a little bit, a couple little things that we do to keep him exercised. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back. I thought we would show you just a little bit on what Thor does to stay in shape when we're not out walking outside. So here we go, and you can see how much he does love walking on his treadmill. We usually do this a few times a week. In the winter time, the trick is to start them slow. Just bring them up to the treadmill and let them look at it. Then get them to stand on it. And once you get them used to that, then you can turn it on very, very low. Then when they start relaxing, you can turn the speed up until they get comfortable and relax. It really didn't take Thor too long. He enjoys doing it, so that's a plus. We start out usually 5 minutes at a time, then work up to 10, 15 minutes, depending on you know, how long we've been doing it, how far along we're at, how many weeks. I usually stay next to him. I never tie him up and leave him. That would not be a safe thing to do. So we just let him go at his own pace, and I usually keep a leg next to him. Gives him a reference point of knowing where he needs to be on the treadmill, not too far, not too behind, you know. Good boy. We would go faster, but a lot of the treadmills aren't long enough for a German Shepherd, because once they get to trotting, they stretch out so far, and he'll start hitting the front of the treadmill, and then his feet will fall off the back of the treadmill. So I would rather just do a nice slow walk and keep him at an easy pace, rather than get him scared and have to start all over again. But he does enjoy his treadmill. Good boy. You're being a good boy. Keep working. Good boy. Okay, well, we finished our treadmill. Thor was going to do some free weights, but there wasn't enough weight on it for him, so we're going to leave that for another day. We're going to get ready and head over to Dr. Davis's office in Troy, and we'll be meeting up with him in just a few minutes, so stay tuned, and we'll get some answers to some of those questions we were talking about, okay? Welcome back to Wags and Whiskers. I'm here with Dr. Lonnie Davis, the owner of the Troy Animal Hospital and Bird Clinic. Welcome to our show, Dr. Davis.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
You know, we've been doing a thing on some different programs, and today we're doing one on trying to get some helpful tips to the everyday animal owner. And with so many people that have pets in Miami County, we thought it'd be a good idea to get some expertise and get some answers to some questions that a lot of people have on owning pets. And one of the first things that we wanted to talk about were vaccines. Every dog and cat does need vaccines, and we just wondered which ones would be the best, and how often do they need these shots?
Well, first off, state law and good common sense says every dog and cat should have a rabies vaccine and kept up to date. Many people don't think they have to worry about that too much, but like for your cat, every now and then you'll have a bat get in your house, or a cat will just go outdoors and catch one. And bats are the #1 carrier of rabies in the country. And you only get rabies one time, because once you've got it, it's fatal. So you want to make sure that you don't have your pet get it, nor do you want to have that pet expose you. So basically, after your first year, with first-year rabies vaccine, you can get 3-year rabies vaccines, but really, 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 you want to get that pet vaccinated for rabies. Now for cats, most cats that are going indoors and outdoors, it would be really a good idea to get them vaccinated for cat distemper, and then also get them vaccinated for the upper respiratory viruses. And then a vaccine that just came out maybe 20-25 years ago is a vaccine for virus leukemia. And interestingly, in cats, leukemia is a virus. And if your cat's going outdoors and he gets into a fight or gets scratched by a cat that is carrying the leukemia, you potentially will lose your cat over the next few months to a few years. So we really recommend for cats distemper, upper respiratory viruses, and leukemia every year, and especially for the outdoor cat. And for your indoor cats, it's a good idea because I can just tell you from my own experience, I have 2 cats that are strictly indoor cats, and one of them got out a couple years ago, and he was gone for a month. Finally came back home, we found him. He was pretty beat up and pretty scrawny, but thankfully we'd given him all those vaccines and everything turned out fine. He just needed some groceries once he got home.
Yeah.
So
What
that would be
about
cats.
what about dogs then? Besides the rabies, I know there's puppy shots and then annual shots.
Right. Well, the rabies definitely is for dogs too. For dogs, your basic minimum would be distemper, hepatitis, and parvovirus, and those guys would be that plus rabies would be considered your core vaccines. Now, if your dog goes outdoors and if your dog is exposed to any kind of wildlife, like let's say raccoons, foxes, coyotes, things like that are coming through your area or the area where your dog goes, you want to get a leptospirosis vaccine. Again, leptospirosis causes the dogs to get really sick and sometimes will kill them. It attacks the kidneys and the liver, but it also is contagious to humans and can cause really serious illness in a human. So leptospirosis, while it wouldn't necessarily be a basic core vaccine, is really a good idea. And then the other thing would be if your dog is going to be going to grooming parlors, boarding kennels, going to playgrounds where other pets are, you really want to get what's called a Bordetella. And Bordetella is called a kennel cough vaccine. It actually covers several different viruses and the bacteria in the Bordetella group. And you can think of it like whooping cough in a dog. But really, you'd rather not deal with that because you've got a dog that's really coughing hard, sometimes goes into pneumonia. So actually, I would consider it a good idea to get distemper, hepatitis, parainfluenza, parvovirus, coronavirus, and also the leptospirosis and the rabies and Bordetella. Now, coronavirus really is not that big a deal anymore. It's one that we used to give because we were seeing a more virulent form of it. It's a good idea, but not necessary. So I'd say corona is your big not necessary, but all the other things would be.
Okay, well that's and thankfully then after they get through the puppy, that's just a once a year thing, right?
Right. In fact, on your distemper, hepatitis, and parvo, we have one vaccine which the company has given the data that once you go through the 2-shot series, it's good for a 3-year on distemper, hepatitis, and parvo.
Oh.
So we like that vaccine here.
Okay, and then as far as preventative for heartworms and fleas and ticks, there's a heartworm, you can do like a pill and then they have like a topical
Right.
for that?
Well, what we usually recommend here is go ahead and get your heartworm test once a year because believe it or not, sometimes your dog will take his heartworm prevention, spit it out, and you don't know it. And then your dog can come up with a case of heartworms a year later and you say, well, I gave all the pills. That's true, but your dog may have spit it up and you don't realize it. The other thing is, just like all other parasites, heartworms can get resistant to the parasite product you're using. So we like to test them once a year. The heartworm products, there's a multitude of them. There's HeartGuard, there's Interceptor, there's others. We here like Interceptor Plus, which is a new one because it prevents heartworms, hookworms, whipworms, roundworms, and tapeworms. So with that new one, we now can prevent all the internal worms your dog can get on a once-a-month basis. You also have Revolution, which you can put on the back of the neck. It will get fleas and ticks as well as prevent heartworms. We've got HeartGuard, which is a good product. It's been out for years. Prevents heartworms, hookworms, and roundworms. And then those would be the main ones that we would give. And it's a great idea. In Ohio, in our area, we have a 5 to 10% incidence of heartworms. So yes, we do see them in our area. Also, the beautiful thing about most of the heartworm preventions, they prevent a lot of the worms they can get in their intestines. So that's why we like the Interceptor Plus so much now. But just as long as you're preventing those heartworms, we're happy.
Okay, well, that's really a good idea. Make sure that you keep your dog up on all the vaccines. And sounds like there's a different kinds that you really need to get for your dog. So make sure that you do check with your vet on what your dog needs and should get. Now, as far as nutrition,
I got to go back and talk about fleas and ticks. I forgot to talk about that. Let me just point out that ticks carry a host of problems that can carry over to people. You can have Rocky Mountain spotted fever. You could also have Lyme disease, and they're carried by ticks. And especially if you're going to be traveling very far out from Ohio, Lyme disease is very common. And those ticks can also carry it to you. So they can get on your pet, ride home with your pet, and then the next thing you know, you've got a tick on you. So make sure if you're traveling especially, you get tick control. Most of the products you can buy over the counter, as well as you get at your veterinarian, will prevent fleas and ticks. There's an interesting new product called Bravecto, which is an oral pill that you can give that will give you 3 months of flea and tick control. So it's really nice in the fact that you don't have to keep trying to put stuff on once a month, and you do have a really effective control for 3 months. So check with your veterinarian, see what they recommend, but by all means stay on that tick and flea control.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, as like I said, nutrition. I know puppies need to be on puppy food. Adults should be on adult food. And then there's so many other kinds of food out there, weight management and problems and stuff. But just for the average pet owner, what are things that they need to be looking for when they go and pick up a dog food package?
Okay, well, here's what I tell my clients to look for. I look for, number one, high protein, moderate fat, low carbohydrates, and ideally no grain. Because basically the dog in the wild does not eat wheat, rice, soybeans, any of the grains. They're not going to eat them. What they eat is little rascals that they caught and ate them. Now, we're talking rabbits, mice, squirrels, whatever. So what does that turn out to be in dog food? High protein, moderate fat, low carbohydrate. Same thing for cats. Both of them are high protein animals. So you go with the best quality food that fits in your family's budget. But if you can go with something that's high protein, moderate fat, low carbohydrate, no grain, go for that. Exactly. The next thing I'd like to tell you about is that on the puppies, especially the big puppies, like the Great Danes, the Labradors, Rottweilers, German Shepherds, don't feed puppy food after the first 6 months. There's actually studies now that show you increase the incidence of hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia, which is problems with arthritis in the hips and the elbows, by feeding too high a protein after puppyhood. And puppyhood ends for these guys at 6 months old. So at 6 months old on the large breed dogs, you want to switch over to large breed adult dog food. Still stay with the high protein, moderate fat, low carbohydrate, but in the puppies, they're going to be getting a much higher level. So switch over at 6 months old to the adult large breed for those bigger dogs.
Wow, I didn't know that. I always had heard before keep them on for a year, but it makes sense with the large breed and all the hip problems that they have.
Purina did a great job with that advertising campaign.
Absolutely.
But at 6 months old, these dogs, bigger ones, should come off of puppy food.
Okay. And what about table scraps? People feeding table scraps. How do you feel about that? I mean, not for a whole meal, but
well, I think
everybody cheats.
Mixed in with their dog food is okay, but there's certain things I would tell you to avoid. Number one, in my practice, I see a lot of dogs that come in with vomiting or pancreatitis have had pork. So I tell you, stay away from pork, stay away from real high greasy fat foods, and then the next thing is stay away from real hot spicy stuff. Just good old country food, okay? So biscuits and gravy and things like that. But chicken, turkey, beef are all okay. Lamb is okay. Fish is okay. But stay away from the pork. And if you're going to give them hot dogs for treats, this will sound like I'm pushing a product, but I recommend if you're going to do that, go Hebrew National, 97% fat-free, all beef hot dogs. The reason for that is they're kosher, so we know they've got a decent quality of beef in them. They're not overloaded with fat. And if you get that 97% fat-free, that I think is a great treat for the dogs. It's also great for giving dogs pills in.
Awesome, awesome. Our next thing that we want to kind of talk about is, okay, now we've talked about all the food and all the things that they probably shouldn't get. The exercise for dogs. How much should they get? How much is too much? And I've heard that exercise is a good way to expend energy on dogs so that it may curb bad habits they have, like digging, chewing, and things like that.
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly right, because a dog that's designed for activity, like a herding dog or a guard dog or a dog that's a whippet or the greyhounds, these guys are designed to run. And so get them out, take them on runs with you. You have to look at the dog and see what they can handle. It's just like anybody else. Different dogs have different endurances. But The other thing would be when you take them out for a run, ideally run the dog on grass or natural turf. The thing I find is that you can actually get too much pounding and end up with problems in the joints if you're running them on concrete or asphalt. The other thing I see in hot weather is I actually have dogs come in that have been run on asphalt, and they'll come in with blistered foot pads where the foot pad is peeling off.
Oh.
And you want to talk about pain, let's talk about peeling off one of your calluses right down to the raw skin.
Exactly.
So stay off that hot asphalt and concrete, especially in the summertime. As far as backyard, you got golden retrievers, you got Labradors. They can't wait to do things like fetching. So teach them to fetch the ball. Teach them to play ball with you. The thing of it is, don't overdo it. Once the dog's got his tongue hanging out and panting real hard, you might want to give him a break, okay? Especially come hot weather. For cats, get little play toys. I had a cat years ago that used to play fetch with me. We'd throw a piece of cat food across the room. He'd jump up in the air and hit it like a guy playing handball, and then go chase it and fetch it and bring it to us. Cats will play fetch if you work with them. Or they'll go chase the ball or have a catnip toy. But you do want to play with your cats, because these guys, I saw a study one time that said the cat at 12 years old sleeps 22 hours a day. Well, a younger cat's still going to sleep 10 or 12 hours a day. But you got to say, okay, get them out, get some activity, so they don't decide that tearing up your stuff is the game to play.
Exactly.
Give them an active game to play, and actually you can really, really have a great time and just bond that pet in with you just tremendously, just by activities that you know the pet likes.
Okay, great. I brush my dog's teeth, and we use just a regular toothbrush. And I've used people toothpaste, and then I bought doggy toothpaste. Does it make a difference on how you do it or what you do?
Well, if you can get a dog or a cat to accept the brush early on, that's great. What you do is do not use people toothpaste, because it has this foaming agent in it, and if they swallow too much of that, it can make them vomit. Okay. So stay away from the people stuff. But most veterinarians, most pet stores will have acceptable toothpaste for dogs and cats. Some cats and dogs won't take a brush, so you get these little finger brushes that you can just put on there and just gently work the outside of the teeth. Most pets don't like it if you go to the inside teeth of the teeth, but most pets don't build up tartar in there either as we clean teeth. So I would say you do that. Other pets will like it if you start out just putting a little bit of the acceptable flavor toothpaste just on your finger, and just start out just a few little dobs around here. Just let them get the idea, hey, this tastes good and it feels good. And then work up to actually doing the brushing. If they will accept it every day, go for it. And try to make it a treat or a pleasurable thing, okay? Other thing is, there's certainly treats you can use. The Greenies have developed a really good product. Also, what was the other one? Oh, there's one that sold by Hill's Food Products called TD, Tartar Control Diet. It's a very good high fiber diet, and dogs actually have to stop and really chew on it. Another thing I've seen, it depends on your viewpoint on this. If you're going to use rawhide chews, you want to use the gigantic rawhide that looks like a big dinosaur bone with a big knot on each end. And then for the dogs, you put it down and let them chew on it for 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night, because if you leave it down all the time, they're going to demolish this thing, and they're expensive. But that 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night actually is almost as effective as toothbrushing, because they sit there and really work their teeth and gums on it. So that's another option. Some people are worried about the Chinese connection. Just don't get the Chinese version of the raw.
Okay. All right. Well, that will certainly help and gives me some other options other than using a toothbrush. A lot of things that people might give their dog or their dog gets into or can go outside can be poisonous. I know there's a lot of different plants, a lot of different foods that are poisonous that we really need to watch out for, especially if your dog likes to go out and chew on different plants or grasses or stuff. But then there's also people that do give table scraps to dogs that might have something on it that is bad for the dog. So what are some of the things that are poisonous? And if our dog, if we think our dog does ingest something, what do we need to look for? What are some symptoms, the signs, and then what should we do?
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can answer all of those.
I know, I'm sorry.
Every poison has different symptoms.
Exactly.
Okay? And it depends on the poison as to whether or not you want to have them vomit or not. Certain things, if they get into something that's really acid or really base, you don't want to get them to vomit, because then they just bring it up and cause more damage to the esophagus. I'm going to give you a list of the things my doctors and I came up with that we commonly think of. Okay, first thing would be grapes. Next thing would be chocolate. Dark chocolate is the bad one. Milk chocolate is not good because you give them the taste for chocolate and then they're going to seek it. So if you have dark chocolate in the house, make sure you got it where the cat and the dog can't get it. Next thing would be raisins, just like grapes, raisins. Next thing, which people don't think about, is xylitol, which is a alternative sweetener that's in a whole lot of things. You know, things like sugar-free gum. You got to look at the peanut butter label and make sure it's not in your peanut butter. You can find it in candy. So you want to watch out for that xylitol. It can really mess a pet up. Okay. Right. Next thing would be bread dough before you cook it, because if it takes that dough in and then it keeps
swelling,
rising,
yeah,
you got a real problem.
Well, that would be bad.
And then the next thing would be macadamia nuts, and then finally onions. So those are common things we would think of. And if you think you've got a problem, you should definitely call your veterinarian or call poison control, animal poison control. I would, you know, for people that come here, we actually answer our phone at night. But if you don't come here, you can call the Dayton Emergency Service at 293-2714 for advice on that, and they can tell you.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, and there again, if you think that your dog has gotten into something that is poisonous, if they're not acting right, please get a hold of someone right away. Don't wait, and because it could be too late.
Yeah, if you're not sure whether it's a problem, call and find out, because if it's something that we need to have them vomit up, we can tell you what to do at home to make them vomit. Okay, and you want to get it out of there the sooner the better. Okay.
Right. The next thing that we wanted to talk about is the importance of spay and neuter. And of course, being from the animal shelter, I'm a big advocate of spay and neuter. All of our animals are required to be spay or neutered. But some people still have this myth about the spay and neuter, and it's harmful, or it changes the dog so bad, or whatever. And then at what age? Because there's different studies. Do it early, do it after they're a year old, do it, you know, what is appropriate, and what's the big importance of it?
Okay, well, first off, the importance of spaying and neutering is this. In a female, and this is a perfect example, we just put a dog to sleep this morning that had not been spayed. It was a 13-year-old Chihuahua. Chihuahuas typically live 15 to 16, 17 years old. This dog had not been spayed, and she had breast tumors the size of grapefruits on a little Chihuahua that had actually burst open, and of course we had to put the dog to sleep because there was nothing really we could do. But in the female, you dramatically increase your chance of breast tumors by not spaying them, okay? Even if you spay them at 2 or 3 years old, you're going to still drop that chance of breast tumors. The other thing with females is females come in heat or in season for breeding every 6 months. Each time they come in season, the cervix is going to open up a little bit, and sometimes bacteria then goes through there and gets up into the uterus, and then when they go out of heat, the cervix closes, and the bacteria just found a wonderful place to grow, and you get this horrible thing called a pyometra, which is the uterus is just filled up with bacteria and pus, which then ends up requiring an emergency surgery. So that's another reason to get them spayed on the females. The other thing is having to deal with a dog going through heat every 6 months is like 2 to 4 weeks of blood dripping around the house, all the male dogs in the neighborhood attacking your house. Whoa, where's Fifi? You know,
right.
It's
looking
just
for
really
the girlfriend.
Not fun. Yeah. So anyway, it really is a good idea to get them spayed. I personally recommend that they be spayed between 6 and 12 months old. Okay. I don't necessarily think they have to go in heat the first time, but I think, you know, over 6 months old, the plumbing for the urinating is up to normal size, and I think that's good. Now on the males, I usually will recommend neutering at 6 to 12 months old. The thing with the males is, number one, we just had to neuter a dog today. It's about 7 years old, and he's had horrible prostatitis for the last month. So you've got the issue with prostatitis. Also, you've got the issue with, sometimes it's rare, but prostate cancer. But much more common in the male dog is a tumor all around the rectum called a perianal, and all that means is around the rectum, adenoma or adenocarcinoma. And those are tumors that grow around the rectum. They come up about the size of my little finger and sometimes up to the size of my thumb. They're open, raw, bleeding sores. If it's the cancerous thing, it can do your dog in. And if you have to have surgery, it can end up causing you to have a dog that can't control his bowels anymore. So I recommend definitely getting neutered to prevent those two problems. The other thing is, if you're going to neuter them, which I think is a great idea. In fact, at this office, we call neutering male dogs and cats tutoring, because it makes them smarter. Because the male dog doesn't have to go out and pee on every corner, and doesn't have to go out looking for girls every time he smells some girl in heat a mile or two away. So it keeps them home. It makes them more sane, as far as they don't have this natural, call of the wild thing. Hey, I got to go out and be a stud dog. And on the females, they don't have to have this call of the wild thing. Oh, I got to go find me a guy. So it's a much safer thing for them to stay home. Now, where was I going with all of this? But anyway, with your spaying and neutering, it's just, I remember, on the neutering, you don't want to do them before 6 months old either, because there's a study that shows you increase the incidence of hip dysplasia and elbow dysplasia when you neuter before 6 months old on a male. And it's a recent study, but it's a thing where you do want to have them at least 6 months, 9 months old. And the other thing would be, get them before they get into the bad habits of having to go urinate on every corner
and mark
and
everything,
mark the territory and all of that. So anyway, I don't know if I answered that question politely, but it's really a good idea.
But we know it's important. Exactly.
Oh, I guess the ultimate thing is, you really don't want a bunch more puppies and kittens you're trying to find homes for.
No, we have enough dogs out here right now. We don't need to go adding to the population anymore. I've always wondered, how often should I give my dog a bath? Now, I know if he gets in something, or if they're an outside dog or whatever, but he's an inside dog, and I don't want to bathe him too much, because it'll pull the natural oils out. But if I don't bathe him enough, he starts having that dog smell. But he does get brushed. What would typical be a good balance for how often should I bathe them and groom them and brush and things like that?
Well, it kind of depends on the hair coat. Number one, if you've got a dog that's long haired like a collie, a bath is a really major event for them, because it's so hard to get them dry, or it takes so long to get them dry, number one. And then the next thing is tangling hair, so you really have a big investment of time. I would say on the long haired dogs, you might want to consider just saying, hey, I'm going to have a standard grooming appointment every 1 to 2 months, and just think about that. Okay. If they get yucky smelling and you're willing to do with the bath and then the comb out and the drying, fine, do them if they get yucky. Or call up your groomer and say, hey, I need an emergency groom. On the short-haired dogs, I would say probably, depending on the dog, at 3 to 6 week intervals, just keep them clean. That's what we're looking at. You can't overdo it with it and indicate or take out the natural oils, and then you end up with a dog with a dry, flaky skin. Another thing that we're finding is nice to do for these animals is get omega-3 fatty acids in them now, because we're actually seeing a lot of the foods just don't carry a good enough level of the fatty acids in their foods. So that, now if you've got a dog with a skin problem, I mean, I have some dogs that have really bad bacterial and yeast infections on their skin. I may have the person giving a bath once a week, and plus the medications you would give until the skin straightens up. But then once you get the skin in good shape, you have to just, okay, what's going to be the right interval for this dog, and what's going to be the right shampoo. Different skins require different shampoos. So you really work with your groomer and with your veterinarian, depending on what the situation is. But between those two, they should be able to keep your hair on your pet in pretty good shape. Cats too. I mean, cats really should get groomed once in a while. Cats really are not thrilled most of the time, but we have a cat that comes in here every now and then. Man, he can't wait to get in the bath. And
wow.
He likes to swim, and so anyway, so we give him a nice bath. But yeah, your cats should be getting combed out at least daily if you can. Another thing with cats is brushing them does not get the dead hair out. You actually have to use something like a stripping comb or a flea comb, so you can get down deep enough into the hair to get the undercoat out, and then you're going to reduce your hairball problems. Same thing with some dogs with long hair. You really have to use almost a stripping comb or a flea comb in order to keep the tines of the comb or the teeth of the comb close enough that it catches that undercoat that's building up.
Yeah, I know, like with Thor, he's got that undercoat, or double coat, I guess they call it, and I can brush him, and it does seem like all I get is the top coat, but I have and I don't know what they call it, like a de-shedder or something like that, where it actually gets down in and you barely move it and it just pulls,
pulls out
3 times the hair.
You just got enough hair for a new dog.
Just about, just about.
Yeah, you got to get that undercoat up too.
So, you know, that is a good thing. And of course, that also stimulates the skin and keeps those oils going and stuff. So, you know, and it's a great way to bond with your animal. You sit there and you brush them and groom them, and it's a good bonding time. The other thing then, as far as goes in with grooming, is the toenails. We get a lot of dogs at the shelter that toenails are just so long, to the point that their toes are sideways, they're walking backwards on their feet almost and stuff. How do you know, first of all, it's obviously an important thing to do, but how do you know how far to clip, especially with dogs with dark toenails? Is there some rule of thumb that you go by when you look at them to do it?
First off, if you have white toenails, it's easy because you can see this nice little point that comes down, and you want to go just a little bit past that, okay? Now on the dogs with black toenails, it's tough. Basically, you just start out and just take off a little tip. And if you start out early with the dog and get them used to it, maybe have your vet or one of the veterinary technicians show you how, or have your groomer show you how. But on the dogs with black nails, it's a little bit of a luck of the draw to make sure you don't cut them too short. Another thing is, once the dog will allow you to do it, just take a little nail file and just gently blunt them off so you get them nice and rounded and smooth, okay? For cats, again, cats actually shed their claws, so you want to have a good grooming post or a scratching post for claws. But the other thing is, if they don't have a good scratching post, they will build up the top claw, so then you want to just take it off at right where it really curves.
Where it bends, okay.
And again, if you've got a veterinarian that will work with you, or a vet tech that can work with you and show you how, that's a good idea. If you get the toenail bleeding, basically I tell you to try to hold at the base of the nail to stop the bleeding. But the next thing would be, if you've got a styptic pencil or styptic powder, pack that in. If you don't have that, I will just tell people use cornstarch or flour. Just pack it on there and try to hold it on for a little bit, and then it'll usually stop it.
Okay.
But those are at-home things.
Okay, well those are some wonderful ideas. I think that's probably everything that I had written down. And I really appreciate your taking your time. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to talk with us and give us some health tips and share with us, your knowledge. And for the everyday pet owner, you've got some great information here to work with. I believe it's very important for everyone to know how to care for their four-legged family member. I know I spoil mine rotten. He gets everything he wants just about, but he is a good dog, so he does get to mine. Dr. Davis, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and thank you, and we'll see you soon. Well, we certainly got some good information from Dr. Davis. I hope it's been helpful, and I hope we answered some of your questions that you might have regarding your pet and pet health, and anything else that nutrition, exercise. Thor got his exercise, so we hope you enjoyed our show and that you keep watching. If you are looking for a dog, please check our website anytime. If you want to come down and visit, see the dogs, you can come during our regular business hours, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m., Wednesday from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m., and Saturday from 8 a.m. till noon. Keep watching WOTVC for future programs, and remember, don't pity a shelter dog, adopt one. See you next time on Wags and Whiskers. Come on, bud. Are you ready? Yes? Do you want a treat? Yes? Okay. High five. All right.